Following on from our last video on ganchos, we now want to look at a wrap, or as someone calls it, an unwrap. I know why, and I kind of get where this term is coming from, so we'll call it both as we go along. Basically, a wrap is like a gancho in that it is a collision of the follower's leg wrapping around the leader's leg, or the other way around, but mostly it's the followers wrapping around the leader's leg. When we talk about ganchos, they tend to be a little bit more static, there's a bit more flick involved, whereas a wrap tends to be a bit more fluid. Honestly, that's really the only difference. There's not a lot in it. Wraps and ganchos, different sides of the same coin. So, this particular one we want to look at here, we'll start from a side step. So my weight's on my right, her weight is on her left. Side step, wrap. So it looks simple, and there's not a lot to it if the technique all just works right. It's that T word again, isn't it? Technique. You know, once we've got the technique, that's what it all matters. So what's happening? I'm going to start with a side step. And as we land, I'm going to give her a little bit of a down signal to stop her collecting. That will slow her down, because without that, I won't get time to project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead a little bit of a down, and then I'm going to project. Now this is where it gets a bit techniquey, because as I've projected, she is here, and I need to keep my chest lead turning her, but I kind of leave this leg behind. So it's there, but I don't just plonk it and try and turn there, because that'll hurt the knee. As you turn, just let that leg flow. Now if you saw the gancho video, when I said about lifting the heel, that means this kind of automatically happens, because I can't not lift the heel. And the knee bends and everything works according to plan. So as I lead her sideways, down, project and turn, I'm keeping turning. I'm still at this point probably 95% on my left foot. There's a bit of weight on my right foot. And so it's just more for stability and just because of the way it's working. I'm not trying to be split weight, I just end up a little bit that way. So, side step, project and turn. Now you can see my chest is leading the way. I'm not trying to do this by forcing her into this position and staying here. I'm leading the way with my chest. So she's naturally led around in that direction. We will finish this bit in a second. Side, there. Now, as I keep going, I'm going to keep turning. I'm going to lift slightly and she'll slide out. And this is why you can refer to it as the unwrap as well as the wrap, because one way of looking at it, a wrap is where you are wrapped in, more like a gancho, and this feels a bit more like an unwrap because the wrap kind of happens without you thinking about it, and then the smooth bit, the flowy bit if you like, is the unwrap and untangle. Yeah? So, side there, up and pivot. Now at this point she's still on her right foot. I've transferred from my left to my right. So I stop projecting, pivot, 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 and as she comes past me, I transfer onto that foot. So now my weight is all on my right. So I've changed weight during that move and she hasn't. So obviously when we come out, we'll come out on cross system. So side, change weight. Then we can just walk out and do whatever. Important safety tip, you're now facing the wrong way. My line of dance was over there somewhere, and now my direction of movement is the other way. So you might want to carry on and do something else afterwards. As with the gancho, the follower needs to remember that this is something that is led and that it shouldn't be just developed because she feels like it. So don't automatically hook and then stay stuck. And now what happens? Don't kick too hard, let it flow. It's a flowy, flowy, flowy move. So we don't want too much twang, yeah? We don't want a nice solid twang into there because you'll end up kicking the other leg because there's not a lot of room in there. So keep it smooth and slow and flowy.
Yeah, because otherwise you stab yourself.
Yeah, you stab yourself with the heel, with your heel. So yeah, it's best avoided. Heels can be pointy at speed. Heels can be pointy at lack of speed, but they can really hurt at speed. For follower styling in this move, there's a few things you can do, but one of the key things is keep the leg straight and extended and keep the foot low. So I'm not aiming for a big lift here, we're trying to keep the foot near to the ground. And when you collect at the end, remember you're not collecting and transferring the weight, you're collecting, keeping the foot ready because that's definitely going to be the foot that goes next. So allow it to stay flat, extended, point the toe, don't you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Straight
So
leg.
everything's nice and straight and flowy. There's a little variation you can do to this that if the music calls for it. It's not something you can do in a flowing piece of music, and this is definitely not something you'd see in sort of traditional tango world. In fact, you rarely see this kind of move at all in the traditional tango world. But you've got an opportunity in the middle to kind of put the brakes on and stop. As a leader, what you're doing, you get to the point where she's wrapped and you literally just stop moving. Tighten up your frame, don't crush her, just stop the frame moving and she'll know she can't go anywhere. Because I'm down, she won't feel like she should be unhooking. And in fact, unhooking can be quite tricky there because everything's kind of caught, yeah? So she'll feel that there's a stop. And then to get out of it, all I do is stand slightly, let her have time, and then transfer the weight back. So my weight is split at that point because it's as I'm transferring across that I stop. I lift, wait till she's out, and then transfer the weight back onto the other foot. So it's kind of a two-stage thing, but it's good if there's a nice defined stop in the music that you know is coming and you can stop. And then extend out of it. It's a very stretched out, extended move, nicely controlled, good balance, everything works.
Oh.
In that version, when the follower unhooks, her leg unhooks more vertically rather than around and flat because the momentum has been lost and the unhook signal comes from me going upwards, which will tend to drive the leg upwards. So it's more of a vertical unhook rather than a sweep. So stop, up, it unhooks upwards, gets clear, and you go. In fact, depending on the balance, I don't always transfer the weight fully back when I do that. So we wrap, we stop, I transfer the weight to kind of mid-point, unhook, and then as we go I might just slide that foot forward rather than be able to pick it up and step. It's just a different styling way of doing it, so you'll see both ways. It kind of depends on the exact final position as to where you get to. If you're quite close together you can transfer the weight and go, whereas if there's a bit of stretch you can't really get back far enough to do that.